a lot of the way that we are raised in North America is to be obedient and to listen to what we're told. And we kind of do that with ourselves in adulthood and tend to judge thoughts or feelings as good or bad, like you should or shouldn't have this, and you should or shouldn't do this or that. If you think it's maybe coming from your childhood, it could be, because that kind of programming goes really deep. It takes a lot of time and perspective to kind of get to the root of why we're feeling what we feel and like where things actually come from, because it's sometimes so far beyond our conscious comprehension.
So for the record, I am burning incense right now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, which
What kind of incense?
This is patchouli. I don't know.
Oh, that smells amazing.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had to make that disclaimer because my TikTok account, I got in trouble for that. So
yeah, it's funny how people make assumptions just seeing a little bit of smoke,
yeah.
Like I know you mentioned on TikTok that you find burning incense has been helpful for quitting.
Yeah.
And I found that too. Like it's very soothing just to have that kind of aroma, right?
Yeah, and I kind of like, I'll even do that a little bit, I don't know if that's not
Yeah.
It's like, come here, I don't know, it just helps me out for some reason, I don't know.
No, I get it.
Anyhow, so I just wanted to do a thing with you and get some of your take on healing and stuff like that, because you have clearly experienced there. And I'd like to start off with asking a little bit about, like you mentioned the other day, that you're like a holistic something and you're a something and you're a something. What are those things? What are those things that you are?
Yeah, so on a search for my own personal healing and growth, I became a meditation teacher. I also studied advanced principles of mindfulness. I became a hypnotherapist, and I've also studied cognitive behavioral therapy and breath work. So, and emotional intelligence. So it's kind of a combination of a bunch of things that I combine together for, I guess, holistic emotional well-being. Oh no, you froze.
I don't know what happened.
Oh no, I think you froze.
Yeah, you froze too, so.
Weird. It shows that we're still recording, so.
All right, cool. Let's keep it going then.
All right.
mean, honestly, like for me, just real quick, I want us to be as natural as possible, and like, I know you're a fan of that too, and there's a past version of myself that would be like, I gotta make sure we get this right, but in reality, like, when I go back and do my editing, I may cut out like this part or something, but it's just going to be just continuous, and like whatever happens. Like, I don't necessarily want it to be like I'm interviewing you or you interviewing me. We're just talking, kind of thing. So
yeah, I like that. It's a more natural flow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I would like to hear, maybe we won't get interrupted this time, what your journey's been like in terms of like learning to be a teacher of different varieties.
Yeah, so basically it started with me going to therapy and finding that there was a disconnect between therapy and actually feeling good in my everyday life. And when I started my healing journey, I began with taking a course in advanced principles of mindfulness. So that went over how mindfulness affects your daily life and different practices for mindfulness, eating, exercising, breathing, meditation, And then I became a hypnotherapist because I was looking to get into kind of the depths of consciousness and how our unconscious minds affect our conscious reality. And then I became a meditation teacher because there's a lot of parallels between hypnosis and meditation. And then I became a breathwork teacher as well. And I also studied emotional intelligence and cognitive behavioral therapy. So I've kind of combined all of that into holistic, emotional, mental well-being practices that have really worked for me and friends, family, and people that I've taught as well. So
yeah. And now you've turned those all those teaching and those learnings and just your overall life experience and everything, and it's getting funneled into an app that you're creating too, right?
Yeah. So I loved meditation apps when I started the healing journey, and I've tried pretty much as many of them as you can try. And I noticed that there was a disconnect from what I was learning to manage my emotions in therapy and through cognitive behavioral therapy and emotional intelligence to my meditation practice. Because sometimes when you're in a really agitated state, or you're distracted or angry or upset or hurt, it's much more difficult to meditate. And I've even heard some experts say that mindfulness, when you're in these emotionally charged states, can sometimes come across as like emotional avoidance, like you're trying to avoid your emotional experience. So what I did is I combined all of these practices with emotional intelligence, individual emotions, so people can meditate based on how they feel. The whole goal is to transcend the meditation practice, to bring the benefits of meditation, mindfulness, and emotional intelligence into your daily life as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now when asking you, like, in terms of the definition of meditation, in my opinion, like, it depends, and there's different forms of it. I think that, when I talk to people about doing meditation, what I first started doing was I would go out to the pier and I would just look off into the distance and do like deep purposeful breathing. I wouldn't be doing any particular breathing technique. I would just be doing deep purposeful breathing and trying to feel the emotions of what I was grateful for, and just run through those things, and even like, yeah, man, you got that, and those kind of thoughts. And then whenever a negative vibe or something would come up, I'd be like, no, this is my gratitude time. This is my time to tap in, and like, or I would just sit there in awe and looking at nature and watching the birds and being like, so beautiful and stuff like that. So I was not doing the traditional sense of, the thing or whatever, but I still feel like that's a form of meditation. Would you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. And I think, just like you, there's so many different types of meditation, right? There's thousands of types of meditation that you can practice. And I think it depends on what works for you. Like, some people can't sit still at first. Like, you can do walking meditation, take a walk in nature, and ground yourself in your senses and what you see and hear and taste and touch and feel. Or you can sit and watch your thoughts as they arise, or practice gratitude, or whatever works for you. I think it's just a matter of practice. And I noticed that, I don't know if this was your experience, but it was definitely mine. When I started meditating, I noticed myself questioning if I was doing it right or wrong all the time.
Yeah.
But then, like, it takes a lot of time to actually feel comfortable doing it. I don't know on that.
Yeah, no, I when I first started, I told myself, like, or I thought to myself that in order for me to be meditating, I needed to either have my eyes closed and not be thinking about anything, or I needed to be listening to a guided meditation and following the stuff, which I still think there's value in that. And that's one of the great ways to do some healing, right? Is like guided meditation with your earphones in and whatever your setting is, sort of thing. But like, my sister, for instance, she says like that she meditates when she works out, and she's like a super go 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 person, and like not I don't know, I don't really feel like that's, maybe it's a form of meditation, but like if you're someone who is constantly, you got your appointments you got to do, you got to be here, you got to be there, you're answering all these people, and your day is just manic, right? And then all you do is like do an intense workout or something. You're spending time with yourself, which is good, you need that, but I don't feel like it's really like any form of actual meditation though. Versus, I think with meditation there has to be a level of stillness and peace. You mentioned walking in nature, right? But you're not like going for a fucking like quick jog or power lifting, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that too. Oh, the gym is my meditation. And so, well, I agree. Certain activities can be very meditative, like working out or painting or building something or these. When people say that these kinds of activities are meditative, I think they mean that they kind of enter a state of flow, right? Like,
Right, a flow state, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily being still with yourself, kind of tuning your attention inwards. It is in a way, but I think the essence of meditation is kind of a non-doing, just being with yourself, letting whatever comes up come up, and noticing with non-judgment and curiosity, and not trying to avoid or escape your feelings or thoughts. It's almost like a way to get to know yourself better. So I think that a lot of people have different takes on it, but I wouldn't say that working out, because like you're thinking of reps and sets and workouts, like it's not really the essence of meditation in itself, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that actually brings up a question for me too. Like when it comes to doing inner healing, Tony Robbins, I think he said something at one point. He's like, when I have something, he said, when he has something negative pop up in his life, he allows himself, whatever it is, a minute, 2 minutes to be like, oh, fuck, and then he calls himself back to a center point and realigns his focus and moves on, sort of thing. And so you mentioned, when you're meditating, you acknowledge whatever comes up. In my form of meditation, I've done like the guided stuff and everything too, but my favorite form is what I mentioned before, going out in the morning. So when I have a negative something pop up there, I'm like, no, we're not looking at it that way. That's not the way we're looking at it. And then I go somewhere else. In your opinion, should I actually sit with that when those negatives, should I sit there and be like, okay, well, why do you feel that way? Or is the way that I do it where I'm like, no, hey, we're good, Phil, we're good, you know what I mean? Like, and then I refocus, so there's my difference there is like, I'm not really sitting, I'm saying like, get the fuck out of here, I'm not doing that right now, sort of thing.
Well, like there's a time and a place to sit with your emotions, right? Like if you're in the midst of a conversation or some sort, right? So kind of
froze up there for a second.
Oh no, what was the last thing you heard?
You're like, and then I'm sorry, you're gonna have to pick up right where right when you started talking. It was like,
oh no.
So, yeah.
How about now? Is it good now?
Yeah, no, it's good now. We were flowing there, we'll pick it back up.
Okay. So so basically, yeah, what I was saying is, I think when you're having a conversation with someone, or you're at work, or you're in a circumstance where you can't necessarily take that time to reflect, I think those are the times when it's fine to compartmentalize your feelings and kind of set it aside for later and tell yourself, oh, I don't need to focus on this right now, and kind of quickly shift your perspective or reframe a thought. But during meditation, I think it's interesting, or it can be very therapeutic to approach your emotions and negative thoughts or challenging thoughts with a perspective of curiosity, kind of seeing where they come from, what they've arisen to tell you, if they're rooted in reality, feeling them in your body. And sometimes when we're feeling very charged emotions like anger, that's when it's really beneficial to do a walking meditation, or to exercise or move through it physically and then meditate on it after, because you can kind of transform that energy, kind of let it out first, right?
Yeah.
So it's nuanced.
So talking about like inner child healing and stuff, I mean, I know like everything ties together in some way, right? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling, based on what you're saying here now, that maybe when I'm when I have that whatever come up and I'm like, get out of here, you know, and maybe I don't say it like that, but I'm like, no, we're gonna go over here, you know. Maybe in a sense I'm telling my inner child to sit down, and I'm not paying attention to what he's feeling or feeling uncomfortable with, or what he needs some comfort with, maybe.
Yeah, like I think a lot of the way that we are raised in North America is to be obedient and to listen to what we're told. And we kind of do that with ourselves in adulthood, and tend to judge thoughts or feelings as good or bad, like you should or shouldn't have this, and you should or shouldn't do this or that. And like if you think it's maybe coming from your childhood, it could be, right? Because that kind of programming goes really deep. But that's what I mean. Like it takes a lot of time and perspective to kind of get to the root of why we're feeling what we feel, and like where things actually come from, because it's sometimes so far beyond our conscious comprehension.
Right. Okay. How long have you been doing your inner healing? Sorry, I'm moving this thing.
Well, I think
I know it's like you're always doing it, right? Like it's always happening.
Yeah,
I'm
like
trying to stop this from going on screen. Carry on.
all good. It seems to stay lit for a long time. That's nice.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
How long have I been doing my inner healing? Well, I think it's been a long process, because I didn't think that I needed healing or therapy for the longest time, until I really noticed reactivity and kind of compulsive behaviors and substance use affecting my life. And it's been a few years that I started getting into yoga, and I noticed that I would feel really, really good after a yoga class. And sometimes I would cry during yoga, or I would, get really angry, or I'd start laughing, like emotions would just come up, and it was confusing at first. But that's when I kind of noticed the importance of healing practices, self-regulation. And then I met my therapist, my current therapist, 2 years ago, and we really had a good connection. And she really helped me go deeper into like inner child stuff, kind of circumstantial issues that I've dealt with. And it was really hard. And I haven't been doing much therapy lately, because I think it kind of comes in waves. Like it's cyclical, like things come up, or you're triggered, or you feel a really intense emotion, and then you kind of dig deep and you deal with it, and then you apply what you learned to your life, and you keep going, right? So I'm still on that journey. Like I still notice, like, I guess, shadow parts of myself come up and affect me in ways that I don't want. But it's like the journey of being human, I guess.
Yeah, we all, that's why one of my biggest messages, that we all have inner healing to do, and even when we begin, and we could be doing it for years and years. And there's this guy, Aubrey Marcus that a friend of mine turned me on to. You're familiar with him. And I was watching this thing he did on ayahuasca yesterday, and he was just talking about how, like, he was saying, like, you know, I still have these moments where I'm like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing and I feel uncertain. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this dude's been doing this shit for a while, you know what I'm saying? And he's still, you know, so it's a journey, but, you know, and there's work involved in it. But the one thing that I'll say is that I wouldn't trade the path of this healing and light, whatever you want to call it. I would not trade this path for, there's not much I would trade it for. Let's say that. Like, it's brought me so much value. And more often than not, the beautiful thing is when you have these moments where it's like, bleh, you now are like, wait a minute, that's not who I am. I don't have to be that. That's just a thought, or that's just a feeling. You know, I just need to look at it and figure it out. Like, it's not like you don't feel like, woe is me, you know, the world is, you know, all gone mad or whatever. Like, it's just, it makes you feel more at peace. I feel more like Mother Nature has always been there for me, and she always will be now. Going down that journey, you know. And so it's, I feel safer, even though it's like, what the fuck's going on, you know, but I feel safer with it, you know, with the path.
I know what you mean. What do you think inner healing means to you?
Well, in general, you know, because my whole thing has been predominantly talking about quitting weed, and like, or maybe you would benefit from quitting weed, et cetera, you know, case by case basis. And the ones that would benefit from it are, you know, definitely people who need inner healing. But I really think that we all do in some degree. But you know, in terms of just the average person, it's because of growing up with certain parents, whether they appeared to be loving or not. Maybe it was something they did with a sport, related to one sport, and that shit got buried in there. You know, the kid was playing a sport and the dad was like, bah! And then that shit just fucking stuck forever, and it was never addressed. And now, you know, who knows? Or it could be not having parents, or it could be movies you watched growing up, or the government, the news, just, you know, all that stuff. Like, we are a product of society, whether it's our parents or siblings or relatives or friends or whatever. That narrative. And so that's the healing, is like waking up one day and being like, wait a minute, like they were like, a lot of people, they were wrong. You know, that's not the way the world works. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like giving yourself compassion. And from a man's perspective, you know, you're always taught by movies and everything else that if you're going to cry, you're a pansy, you know, or whatever other word you want to use there, and that it's a feminine thing, and, you know, dudes would make fun of you. But then you look at it, you're like, well, the guys that are making fun of you for crying are the ones that probably should be crying, because they're making fun of you because they're broken, but they're just covering it up with all this stuff that they identify with, you know. And it's, you know, so, you know, everybody's different. But for me, it's what I've realized recently. I don't know if we talked about this before, but what I realized recently is that there's a part of my inner child, and I also have realized recently too, it's not just inner child, right? It's inner 5-year-old, inner 10-year-old, inner 14, inner 18, inner 22-year-old, all the way up to, you know, 5 years ago person, you know, whatever. Like, they all need some love, you know, like, it's going to be okay kind of thing. But one thing that I realized prominently for me is that I'm still operating at a subconscious level of, you know, looking for the approval of my older sister. And like, I want to sit at the cool kids table and with her, like, you know, like when we were younger, like her and a couple of the older, you know, would sit at one table, and then me and then we would sit at this table, you know, like that kind of thing. I want to be, oh no, look at me, I'm doing good. You think I'm doing good, right? Is it? No, it's good, you know, like that kind of thing. And then there's the other part of it, that's the inner child that just wants to be cool, you know, like he just wants to be cool, you know, he wants to meet up with a group of other, you know, 10, 12-year-old kids. And, you know, we're all at that age, no confusion to the fucking algorithm. You know, when you're that age, you meet up with these, you know, other kids, and you want them to think you're cool, you know. And if you didn't really get, I think the biggest thing is, if you didn't really get a solid, we talked about this, I think, emotional relationship from your parents, that can be a huge part of that. And I'm getting the tinglies talking about that. You know, you get the tinglies, it's like you're onto something.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what it is and you know, 6 months ago, before I decided to take my journey of really sticking with the laying off the weed, which also played into some family loss. Like, you know, I lost my mom and my dad in the last couple of years, and so like my dad being a narcissistic sociopath, when he died, gosh, I'm sorry, now I'm going off a thing. I'll wrap this up in a second. But so my mom passed away in November of 2020, but that's up in Georgia, and we weren't going to go see my dad because like we just weren't seeing him anymore because he was like a monster. I mean, let's just call it what it is. He was a monster on this planet, and we think he drove my mom to an early grave. So we never really went back up there. So when he passed away and we went up there, it was the first time I had walked into those doors since seeing my mom, you know?
Wow.
And so like, then it's like everything hits you at once, you know? And so that was a huge trigger point for me. I also got let go of the job that I was working for at the time, right at the same time. And so it's like I'm stripped of all of these things that I kind of had identity with. And I think that really set me on the path then. Now, granted, at that time I was drinking. I had just quit drinking because I've been trying to battle these things for so long, you know, for a few years now. And I had just gotten to 22 days not drinking when I found out that my father died. And that was like the longest stretch that I had gone without drinking in a while. And I was like, well, I guess we're gonna start drinking again. You know what I'm saying? And so then I drank and like processed that shit for like a month, but then or whatever. And then I started and like really sticking with it. And I don't really know why I went off on that tangent, but that's what started my inner healing journey. And so now I know that it's, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. The positive self-talk it's relationship with self, I think. In essence, inner healing to me is relationship with self. And I never had a relationship with myself. All of my good feelings of whatever came from me getting other people to laugh at me and like me and laugh at my jokes. And I want them to be happy around me, you know, people pleaser, you know?
Yeah.
And there was no time for me. I didn't, you know, Tom Bilyeu says, what's most important in life is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. When I first started hearing him say that, I'm like, what is he talking about? I don't get it, you know. But now I get it. And it's some work though. I know that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and like you said, it's connected to so many different painful parts of ourselves and parts of our past. And there's even like trauma is such an overused word now.
Right.
But the pain that we feel is not just the bad things that happen to us, but it's also the good things that never happened to us, right? And like you said, when you don't get that strong emotional connection from your parental figures or caregivers, you kind of tend to look elsewhere for that. Like whether it's from an older sister or friends, you want that external validation, right?
Yeah.
And I like that quote that you just said, because I truly believe that the relationship we have with ourselves is projected onto our relationships with others.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, like I have people that come to me and they ask me, you know, like they'll start leaning into something relative to a relationship. And I'm always like, hey, I'm not touching that one. Like I've got a lot of advice there, but I don't want any crazy exes coming after me, you know, you're the reason that you know, sort of thing. But I'm a firm believer that, you know, until you really have a good relationship with yourself, the relationship you have with someone else is just you filling a void. I mean,
I know what you mean.
And it doesn't mean that relationship can't be a happy one. It doesn't mean that those two people can't live out their life together and have plenty of good memories and beautiful kids and all of that stuff, you know? And maybe that's what they're meant to do on this particular existence. You know what I mean? Like I believe that tapping into the spiritual world, right? That there's baby souls, there's adolescent souls, you know, there's early adult souls, and there's old wise souls, you know, here. And you know, the baby souls are, you know, the assholes on the road that are running off the highway or whatever, you know. I don't know. But there's certain people that if they're happy, fine. But it's like, I don't know. Are you really happy? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like they don't feel whole by themselves, so they search for someone else to fill that void, like you said.
Yeah.
And then it kind of becomes this pattern of codependency, and a lot of this happens outside of conscious awareness too.
Yeah.
And it like you said, we can feel totally fulfilled. Well, not, I mean, I don't think we could ever feel totally fulfilled in a codependent relationship, but we can feel content, we can feel pleased, but it's totally different than getting to a point where you feel totally whole and your partner is just adding to it,
An accentuation of that.
Yeah, like bringing out the best parts of you, accentuating it. And yeah, that's it's difficult, like, to go into all these levels, right? Because
yeah
it's
I mean, like, honestly, like when someone says something to me, like in the relationship sense, I'm usually just gonna be like, well, are you happy? Like, are you really happy?
yeah,
Are you happy? Like, sort of thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. It's like, all right, well, that's good. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then, like, I don't think that, I'm going to help everyone. I want to help as many people as I can. And partially that's for my ego. And it's also for the betterment of the world, because if we bring up the spirit of others, we bring up the spirit of the world too. But that being said, I know that, like, my content creation is not, I'm not necessarily trying to reach everyone. I'm just like, so when I'll get some comments where they're like, well, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. And I could sit there and go, well, that's true, but this and this and this. Instead, with those people, I'm just like, hey man, if you're happy, that's great. All the love. And I move on. But the ones that engage and go, man, Phil, you're speaking to my soul, man, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. I'm here to help you because you're already, like, it feels like you're here. We're already kind of like in the thing, I'm not going to battle anyone to try and, get them to come down a certain path. And it's not that I'm not trying to say like my path's the best path, but it's like, it's not even my path. It's our path, right? If we all just look inside ourselves, I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I totally know what you mean. And there's so much that we learn from others too. Like, it's easy to blame others for failures or challenges in our lives, but we could also switch our perspective and see how much we can learn from others and kind of expand our perspective to see what they've been through and like kind of empathize with people and notice that even I get hateful comments on my videos sometimes, and it makes me upset. Like, no one wants to see hateful comments, right? But I realize, like, if someone has the energy to think such a nasty thought and commented on a total stranger's video that they know nothing about, like, that person must be in a lot of pain,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And they don't even know it half the time.
Yeah, because
they're filling their whatever by, blah, 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 or they're shopping at Amazon all day, or they're, drinking every night, or they're, they're doing something to not be present, to escape being themselves.
Yeah, like projecting their pain or trying to avoid it or numb it. And like, I see that often in others now because I noticed it in myself for a long time. Like, after I got out of an abusive relationship, like I said to you before, I went to a few therapy sessions. I thought I was fine. And then it was just smoking cannabis every day, drinking every day. And I was functional, right? Like, I had a job. I was doing well. I seemed relatively fine on the outside, but on the inside, it was just, I didn't want to be with myself. I didn't want to be with my thoughts and emotions. I
Yeah.
wanted to escape them at all costs. And then I put the labels of, oh, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, right? But it's like,
Mhm.
why am I anxious and depressed? Like there's so much pain that I endured that I kind of just slapped the label on of anxiety and depression and thought drinking and smoking would help me, right? Like it would relieve my pain, when in reality I was just covering it up, avoiding it, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
it's not a pleasant reality to reflect on, because it's it takes a lot of courage to look at those dark parts of yourself, your shadow, and be aware of them, and also meet them with compassion, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think that, you know, and I'm no doctor, obviously, or scientist by that or whatever. I'm neither of those things or any of that. But based on like what I've seen and what I feel, you know, there's a lot of different things out there, ADD, ADHD, whatever. And not to make light of it, you know, there are people out there that have that and they're going through a rough time. I had my version, my own version of anxiety that I battled. But I just feel that no matter what it is, theoretically, we can go within and practice different inner healing techniques, meditations, breathing exercises, you know, certain things, how we eat our food. You know, there's so all these different things that we can do that if we do these things and we believe in the power of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and like really believe it, that we can heal. And it
Yep.
may not be immediate, you know, but I think that there are people out there that instead choose to escape and you know, like you know, not think about that as an option and instead cling to, well, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, it's because I have this. It's
Mm-hmm.
because I have this that I do this. So that's just what it is. And
Yeah.
it's like, and then I see these people and like they get super defensive and it's just like, hey man, I come in peace, you know. I'm just saying like maybe I'm wrong, but have you ever thought about maybe looking at this? Because if you go down this road and it works, as I've seen it has worked for many people before, I always talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza. I know you probably know him, right? Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Dispenza. He's done like, he's helped countless people like beat all sorts of stuff with the power of the mind, meditation, etc. And it's like, wouldn't you want to at least try something like that? You know? It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, but I don't know. Not everybody's meant to go down the path, I guess, you know.
And everyone has their own timing too, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
That's fair. Because if someone came to me, I was thinking about that before. If someone came to me like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago and was like, hey man, this is the way, do this and this and this, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here, man. You know what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying? Like, you know, because
Yeah.
it's like you want to find it yourself, you know, you don't want someone else to show you. And I think that's kind of the same thing with like with the comments that I get, the ones that are, man, I just leave them alone. But the ones that are like, oh man, I think the universe put me here. Okay, great, dude. I'm all for it. Let me help you however I can, you know, sort
Yeah.
of thing. But,
Yeah. And like sometimes we're not psychologically ready to
right.
deal with certain memories or certain pain, like um even I don't know if you listen to Tim Ferriss. I used to listen
I
to
have,
him much more, but
yeah.
he came out and said that after a trip on ayahuasca, he remembered being assaulted as a very young boy, and like this came up when decades later,
Yeah.
and like that's the function of our brain. Like we purposely forget or um, compartmentalize these parts of ourselves or these experiences to survive. We don't want to remember the pain because we
Right.
need to live, right? And that's why a lot of therapists I know, they say that they have clients come in their 40s, 50s, 60s talking about their childhood or experiences they had very early in life that they had completely forgotten until decades later.
Yeah.
And I think like it's so important to remember that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves.
Yeah.
And to have patience and respect for everyone's individual journey.
Sure.
Because judging someone and criticizing them and like people that are truly awake have no interest in judging those who sleep.
Right. Yeah. And I think that for me, my older self, it's all a journey, right? My older self, like I remember as a kid, we pulled up to like a red light and this kid on his bike was outside, and we were like 18, and this kid fell down and we all started laughing at him. As a kid, I was like, fuck, blah, 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 laughing at him and shit. And like now I think back to a memory like that and I'm like, dude, that poor kid. And I don't even know if he heard us, but we were in the car getting a big chuckle at this kid's expense.
Mm-hmm.
And at that age, like, now I can look back and say, well, I was looking for validation in my friend because we were laughing together at this poor kid. And for some reason, that's how that worked.
Yeah.
But now that I'm reaching this point, I'm slowly, getting there where I don't want to, judge anyone. And sometimes maybe there's moments where that comes in a little bit. But I'm definitely, more and more becoming at peace. And that's where I use that term baby souls. And I don't know if anyone else has ever said that, but like, that's in my head, like, oh, they're a baby soul. And you know what? Hey, babies will be babies, peeing and pooing on themselves, so
yeah, I know what you mean. And
can't get mad at a baby.
Right.
So.
Oh, that's that's an interesting way to see it. I like that though, because it kind of brings in some empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I made this post the other day that really kind of riled some people up about this Carl Jung quote where he says, anything that irritates us and others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was talking about how when we get irritated, that can show us our deeply held values and beliefs, but it can also, or like this goes for like judgment, anger, like anything we feel towards others. This can be mirrored back in our own parts of ourselves that we may not want to acknowledge are there, because it's so much easier for us to see the shortcomings and the failures and the embarrassing things that other people do, but it's so much more difficult to see it in ourselves. Not to say that we should blame ourselves, but it's just kind of like a good exercise of reflecting, like seeing, like kind of integrating the darker parts of our psyche with the lighter parts, so
yeah.
I know. And also hindsight is 2020. Like we're never going to be perfectly aware, perfectly regulated. But I've done that a lot where I've looked back on past versions of myself, things that I've done or said, and thought, oh my God, like how could you have done that? How could you have said that? That's so embarrassing. And then I remember that embarrassment is really just a fear of other people's judgment. And that almost everyone is thinking more about themselves than they are about you. So that's kind of what I remind myself to just let that shit go. Right.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite quotes right there. I want to get that as a sticker on my next car that I'm going to get.
Which one?
Well, the one where it's got like the picture of the Buddha and then on the bottom it says, let that shit go.
Yeah.
Slap that on the back of my car.
I have that in my bathroom.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So on my side, I froze up. I'm not frozen on your side, am I?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, it doesn't matter on my side. So I wanted to ask you, and this is for my people, because I talk about inner healing a lot. And, I a lot of times I'll say, go Google inner healing and find what works for you. I have my things that I do, but you have, a lot of knowledge in that department. So if you were to highlight, let's say, whatever, top 3, top 4, top 5 practices that anyone can do, or, whether it's writing a letter to your older self or your future self or breathe or whatever it is, like, what would you, throw out there?
So That's a great question. I think there are so many different healing modalities, and it's hard to say what's the best because we all come from our own subjective realities. And different techniques work for different people at different times, right? So what I would say is to try anything that you can, really. Like whether it's meditation, hypnosis, mindfulness, just being mindful of like everyday activities, journaling, gratitude, therapy, even working out or tuning into the sensations in your body. Like there's so many ways to heal yourselves, and there's so many levels too. Like it's not all just in your head. I tend to think that healing is holistic, and holistic is an overused word too, but like holistic just means as a whole. Like we have to look at ourselves as a whole. Like we're a mental, emotional, physical, social being. And that's why it's important to recognize your needs as interconnected and try various practices to meet those needs, like find a sense of community, join a club, have people that you can talk to about different things in your life. Write, like on an emotional level, if you're dealing with your inner child, like one thing that my therapist told me to do is to write a letter to my younger self when I was 5 years old, 10 years old, 15, 20, and so on. And tell myself at those ages what I needed to hear. And that was very therapeutic for me. And things I do on the daily, I meditate, even if it's 2 minutes of just breathing, tuning into myself, seeing what's going through my mind, seeing what I'm feeling, going for walks.
What about audible self-talk? Like audible self-talk?
Oh, like so that's something that's really interesting. I've started doing that. Is you take videos of yourself. So it's almost like a video journal. You can just do that on your phone. Take a video, talk about whatever comes to your mind, and like that's very healing to just get it out audibly. And sometimes like you can delete it, you can leave it, you can watch it back, and it can be a really valuable self-reflective practice. But
what about not videoing though? Like
voice notes
walking,
or whatever?
Well, no. You're just walking around, like you're in your place walking around, and you have a thought come up, and you start talking to yourself right then and there.
Yeah, and you know what? Go for it. Why not? Like
I've found that it's helped me. There's some study I saw where it said that internal thoughts. If you think to yourself, something good, it's good, whatever. Like that's helpful. But when you say it out loud, it's like 4 to 7 times more powerful than if it's internal. So I've been doing that a lot. Like, and I'll say, like, I tell people in some of my videos, like, you pass the mirror in the morning real quick, come back to it and be like, hey man, you fucking rock. You know that? You're a good dude, like that kind of stuff. It always makes me feel really good when I do that. And in the shower too, I take, at the end of my shower, I go straight cold. So it's like a normal shower. And then the last 45 seconds to a minute, it's like as cold as I can get it. And I'm always doing like positive affirmations in that time and like stretching out and like just, it's like my fucking like recharge moment,
Oh yeah. Like,
but I found that it's helped me tremendously, like audible. Cause the video thing you talk about, it's funny. Like that's how I started my YouTube channel, was basically it's a journal, and of course I'll go in and edit stuff, but a lot of my content, like I just fucking talk out whatever's on my head and then I hit upload. You guys enjoy it now,
Right. No, I like that because like even just speaking something out loud, like expressing yourself verbally, like we're so often taught to, oh, watch what you say, don't say that, say this, like like we kind of like compress ourselves, and just to even sometimes it's helpful to just scream or like yell into a pillow or just let it out or sing or hum or, you know,
Singing
yeah.
good stuff. I
Oh,
forgot about
yeah.
that too. Like I like to make little songs that like pep me up, you know, about myself and start dancing around and stuff, singing. That shit'll put
Yeah.
you in a good mood.
And your dog probably loves it too, right?
Yeah,
I know my bird, I started singing and I don't judge myself if it's good or not, but he gets like right into it, like whistling, singing along, and feels like we got a little party going on.
That's awesome. I love it. That's good
Yeah.
stuff.
So, and cold showers too. It's cold showers, like there's so much research on cold exposure therapy being so good to get you back into your body, help you feel present. There's also increasing your immunity, but it kind of like, I read this book, Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke, where she talks about the pleasure pain balance and how it's so important to find balance in our age of indulgence because we're surrounded by pleasure everywhere we look, and our lives are more comfortable than ever. And consciously subjecting yourself to that kind of pain and discomfort, like cold showers, exercise, like vigorous breath work, that can be very, very healing as well.
Yeah.
On like a neurobiological level as well as a spiritual level, right?
Yeah. So meditation, journaling, positive self-talk, cold showers. What about for you, for instance, what kind of screen time do you have in your average day?
Oh, yeah, I try to be mindful of it, but it's hard because like, you don't just have social media on your phone. Like I also like to read books on my phone. I listen to audiobooks, YouTube videos. Of course I have an app. So I try to keep it as low as I can, but sometimes you just get sucked into that vortex and you just lose so much time, and then you look at your screen time and it's embarrassing sometimes. Like
I mean, the biggest thing I say, if we stick to a general, are we learning? Are we creating? Are we communicating?
Yeah.
Right. If you stick in those three, well, fuck, you're doing better than a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that the real bad shit is when you're just mindless scrolling or you're watching reality TV or shitty movies that like fuck with your head. I only watch lighthearted comedies now.
Yeah.
Like I won't watch anything else because I know that it fucks with my head somewhere subconsciously.
Yeah.
Like straight up, dude. Like no offense to anybody on here that's watching this shit, but when you watch horror movies and stuff, that shit gets in your head and it fucks with you a little bit. I mean, that's my belief. I don't know.
It does for sure. And I love thrillers, like psychological thrillers, because I just like I love that feeling of kind of being like, messed up in my head. But then always, like you said, like I'll have weird dreams about it. I'll have like the odd paranoid thought, like, what was that noise? Is that someone in the basement? Or
I have a neighbor that's the first time I started talking to her, she's sweet as pie, has a nice newborn kid and everything. And I first got in a conversation with her, and she alluded to that she watches. Well, she was saying something about, well, I'm worried about this and this in the neighborhood. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. She goes, well, I'm always watching these crime dramas and stuff, and blah blah blah. I'm like, Jesus, well, that's the problem. Stop watching that shit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But the thing that I've found in my research that's most important is like the first hour we wake up and the last hour before bed. And that we should strive to wake with the sun and go to sleep with the sun in some form, at least if nothing else, by what light we see, right? So when the sun goes down, try to use candles versus, or at least low light. Like we don't want to have the
warmer, soft
shit. Or like when you first wake up, you don't want to come in and turn on all the lights and shit,
Yeah.
or look at your phone at that point, because that's like one of the worst times to look at the blue screen is when you first wake up.
Oh
Because it
yeah.
can really fuck with your like overall everything, you
Your
know?
circadian rhythm,
Yeah.
your eyesight. Like I know that if my phone is beside my bed at night or in the morning, it's like a habit. Like I will reflexively reach for it and, you
Mhm.
know, click on the apps, go through, scroll, right? So I've had to create that physical barrier where I leave it on my desk every night on the other side of the house. So
Yeah.
it's it's away from me physically, and then it makes it easier to be more mindful. Like, okay, I'm going to read a book before bed. I'm going to,
Mhm.
you know, not look at screens in the morning. I'm going to do my morning routine before I look at my phone.
Yeah.
Because we're so attached to our devices. Like that book, Dopamine Nation, the author says, our phones are the modern hypodermic needle, delivering digital dopamine 24/7. And it's
Yeah.
so true. Like
Yeah.
it's just so easy to get reeled into every notification, every hit of dopamine, of pleasure, of the next post, right? The next exciting thing. And then over time we need more and more of it to feel good, to feel something.
Yeah.
And before we know it, hours and hours and hours and days,
Mhm.
probably weeks every year are spent mindlessly scrolling. And like,
Yeah.
what could we be doing with that time that would serve our best self,
It's
right?
like we're not controlling the direction of our cognitive awareness when we're in it. Like it's like if you get in there for a moment, like for instance, us right now, right? We're using a screen to do this. Once we're done, if we go outside for a walk for 15 minutes before doing anything else on a screen, there's so much benefit there, right? But like if we go straight to the screen and scroll TikTok for 20 or 30 minutes, that version of ourselves after that moment is going to be less inclined to want to do stuff. We're going to be a little bit more
Yeah.
sedated, a little bit more meh, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
um,
Like it's sometimes we see it as like, oh, I'm gonna just go on TikTok, I'm gonna scroll for a little bit, Instagram, whatever. And then, you know, an hour goes by and it's like, oh shit, it's already an hour. And then you kind of think, oh, well, I've already been scrolling. I may as well keep scrolling, watch video, do this, do that. But like I noticed when I notice that impulse to scroll or to go on my phone, and then I let it pass, I do something else.
mhm.
And when I make that decision, it's kind of like a domino effect. Like then I'll want to exercise, then I'll want to go for a
Right.
walk, then I'll want to write or journal. Like it's you know, the patterns that we repeat every day we are ingraining in our brain.
Yeah.
We're ingraining those pathways into our brain, whether we like it or not. And I think that's why it's so important to be conscious of the patterns that we repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, just real quick, as far as the weed thing is concerned, when you came off of the weed, what were your withdrawals like, and how did you manage them?
Oh, so um I was I was smoking every day for the last 5 years. After I got out of an abusive relationship. And it was only at night. And, you know, I figured, oh, it's like a joint a night. It was fine, right? Like it helps me
You
fall
never were
asleep.
like an all day. You weren't an all day smoker.
It got to the point where it was occasionally all day, but I couldn't, like when I was working in mortgages and finance, like the numbers like would get jumbled and I couldn't like I just couldn't do that. But
So
like
was it
on
like right when you got off, right when you logged out of work, it was like fucking shit, give me that weed, like
Oh
right
yeah.
then, or
Like that was like my reward at the end of the day. Like that was what helped me relax. And like I just thought everything was better with weed. Working out, you know, watching TV, doing everything. Like it's just, oh, you know, it's a way for me to help me turn off my thoughts
Mhm.
that just are incessant. And it became a habit. And it was definitely for me, I thought, oh, it's just like, I kind of started it as from a place of like, oh, this is pleasurable, it makes me feel good. And then when I noticed that I was smoking every single day, it as like a form of like, or when I got stressed and anxious and I had to consume it, it was like, this isn't coming from a place of merely seeking pleasure. It's also coming from a place of avoiding pain. And then I started experimenting with going off of it for like a week or two. And like, I would have so much more clarity in my day, and I would have better dreams, and I would remember my dreams, and I would just feel more energetic. And I realized that like, for me, it was kind of gradual. Like, as I was going to therapy, I was still smoking every day at nighttime. And as I was working through some of my like emotional issues, perspective issues, it was kind of gradual. Like, I started to come off it because I started gathering the tools to be able to manage my thoughts, manage my emotions, ground myself, connect to myself, understand why I'm feeling and thinking the ways that I am. And honestly, cannabis was amazing for me for those 5 years that I was in a lot of pain and suffering a lot of anxiety. And it served me. It helped me escape. It gave me what I needed at that time. But as I grew, I realized that it's not something that I'm always going to need, because I want to be able to be with myself. And now when I use it occasionally, it's very intentional. Like, I'm, like, I'll do all my stuff that I need to do for the day. And then I'll like, whether it's for creativity or, whatever it may be, I use it more intentionally now, like without the coming from a place of pain or avoidance or
escaping or whatever.
Yeah. So it's more intentional now. And I think it's helps me feel more in control, less. Yeah.
Can I ask you how much it is now? Like, how often?
So now it's about every 2 weeks. I'll have some. I'll usually smoke it. Vaping really hurts my sinuses, and I've had bad experiences with edibles. So
and when you do it, are you typically by yourself?
Yeah, I don't like I don't like consuming it around other people, because I tend to get very reflective and creative, and I kind of withdraw depending on the strain, of course. But I like it by myself better.
Do you ever go out and sit like amongst all those trees behind you there and smoke and just like talk to the trees when you're high?
Oh yeah,
how does that go? I'm super curious how that goes.
So there's a lot of trails where I live, and I go down the road, and there's this big like aggregate pit that's like been restored, and there's this rock at the top of it, and you can see Toronto in the distance. And
cool.
And I take a walk up there, and I'll have a little bit, and I'll just look out on the distance and kind of reflect, think about life. And I noticed that when I use it in that intentional way, I seem to get like, I seem to notice kind of the beauty of nature more. And I feel more connected to nature. Like, it seems like it's hard to explain. But I feel like this connection to nature, like I can see the trees as having their own form of consciousness, and I can see the beauty and diversity of all the plants and the animals, and how they all interconnect in their own chaotic yet perfect way.
Right.
And it's something that's more difficult to do when you're not, when you don't have that substance for like a altered state of consciousness.
Yeah. So in a sense, you're in those moments, you're more present with nature than you would be. And so see, like I can see that, and tell me your opinion on like your life, but like when I was smoking weed every day, sun up to sundown, I was not present, right? But that's because I was using it to escape. I was using it to not feel. I wasn't setting intention. It was just a fucking vice or whatever, right? So it made time just like fly by, Christmas to Christmas, rolling around, like where the fuck am I, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I could totally see that if I take it and I go out to nature and it's on occasion and I'm by myself and I set intention, I could see that being a transformative experience.
Yeah, it's very transformative. Like you said, if you go into it with the right intention, because I think not every substance, but a lot of substances used with that intention can be incredibly therapeutic, and not just like, taken at a party or to avoid a feeling, or
right.
Like it is very medicinal when you treat it as such. Not like a crutch, right? Because like how much of our pain that we avoid with substances comes from our a disorder that we were born with, or something that we can't control, and how much of it comes from a lack of self-care.
Right. Yeah. That's like my biggest thing is I'm just trying to get people to take a moment, and some people, they're not ready to hear it, and that's fine. My shit's not for everybody. But as far as withdrawals are concerned, did you have like upset stomach? Did you have, like what was your withdrawal experiences?
My appetite was shot for a while. Because like the way I kind of ate before is I would not eat too much during the day, and then eat like most of my calories at night. And I just wasn't very hungry at all. I felt very irritable.
Yeah, right. I know that one.
Yeah. And it's to the point where it was like I hated myself for being that irritable and lashing out at people, because I didn't want to be that way. But I knew that was withdrawal. And and also sleep. Although I had good dreams, I found I really had to exhaust myself during the day with exercise or walking to actually sleep, because it wasn't as easy to go to bed. Like,
right.
I was kind of used to just like, falling asleep on the couch, or like plopping into bed, like half asleep. But then
high and full and high.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're not, it kind of makes going to bed uncomfortable. Like, oh, I actually wash my face, brush my teeth, like take a shower, meditate. Like, wow, there's so much, awareness now. Yeah.
So, when you're going to sleep now, are you typically like reading a book and then passing out, or do you do like kind of like a little meditation right before bed, right before you sleep?
Yeah, so I usually read a book before bed, and then I do like a little meditation. I reflect on my day. I always try to reflect on at least one good thing that happened during the day.
Right.
And then I kind of like in my mind, I bring up like the most important thing that I need to do the next day. And then sometimes I ask myself if there's anything I'm pondering or anything that I need to figure out. I kind of meditate on that and ask for answers in my dreams.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Have you had lucid dreams?
I've bordered on lucid dreams,
Yeah.
but like lucid dreams, I guess that's like when you can control your dreams, right? Like you can.
Well, I think so. It depends on whatever, but to me, I think lucid dreaming to me means like when it's just so fucking real. When it just
Yeah,
feels like, wow, that was not one of my normal dreams. That was like I was there, you know, like that kind
yeah.
of, you know.
Oh, I very often have those types of dreams, and
Yeah.
like there's been occasionally I like moments of I'm aware that I'm dreaming, but I
Oh,
haven't quite gotten to the point. Like it's not really something I'm trying to do. Is like
yeah.
be fully aware in dream mode.
Yeah.
Because I think that just like dreaming is kind of beautiful in itself to kind of just let
Yeah.
your mind do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people ask me like a lot, like why are the dreams, you know, so nutty when you come off? I like to think that if you've been using weed for a long time, you're escaping, you're bottling emotions, and it's like when you come off of it, your soul is finally able to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's like because it's coming off, it's like holy shit, all this stuff's just coming out, and so that's why you have so many
Oh yeah.
dreams when you first come off of it or whatever.
It's yeah. Oh, and nightmares too. When I quit I had a lot of nightmares.
Mm,
It was also from a very unfortunate experience I had with someone in my life. And yeah, I dealt with a lot of nightmares and night terrors. But as
yeah,
I continued therapy, and that was also one of the reasons that I liked that I smoked, because I didn't
yeah,
want to dream. And yeah, as I continued therapy and I started reading more on dream interpretation and symbols that dreams present, they started going away. So
yeah.
yeah.
We got to do. I'd like to do this again at some point and dive deeper on, you know, the dreams and the spirituality and I'd really like to go down that road at another time with you for sure, if that's something you'd be up for.
Yeah, and for sure. There's so much to talk about. Like it's just emotional, mental, physical well-being, spirituality, science, like it's all interconnected.
Let me maybe potentially get closer to wrapping up with this question or whatever. Michael Pollan, have you seen or read his book, or have you seen the new Netflix thing or?
Oh yeah, I haven't seen the Netflix thing, but I've read his book, How to Change Your Mind, and yeah, it's very good.
So have you entertained psilocybin or have you done it before or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like an amateur mycologist. I love not even just like
What does that term
psilocybin.
mean?
So it's someone that studies fungi, mushrooms.
Okay. Oh shit. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So I love Paul Stamets. He talks a lot. He's like one of the world's top mycologists, and he talks a lot about not just psilocybin mushrooms, but like medicinal mushrooms for other purposes, mushrooms for environmental purposes. It's just fascinating. And also, did you know that we share 52% of our DNA with fungi?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
So
didn't-
no, I have that's I have definitely experimented with
like once a month or what?
so the way I see it is when I feel very energetically stuck in my life, like there's something that I need to figure out, or like a energetic block, a mental block, an emotional block. I like a creative block even. I like to use it usually seasonally, or like, yeah, maybe like 3 times a year,
Okay.
um, to kind of for a reason. And then I find that that lasts me for quite a long time, actually. Yeah.
When you do it, do you do it where you're doing like you're covering your eyes and you're listening to like Beethoven or something, or how do you do it?
So I've done that before, but what I like to do is I like to prepare my body and my mind. So I like to exercise, shower, meditate beforehand, eat something, and then have my journal, um, like art supplies, and then just kind of let myself go where I need to go. And usually that's like expressing myself creatively, writing, painting,
Yeah.
yeah. Or sometimes it's like moving. I'll like dance or love dancing,
Yeah. Okay.
or like yoga or movement because it's yeah, you can feel like very energized sometimes
When
when.
you're doing it, are you doing micro like oh, I guess my question is, do you do a varying of micro, etc. Like, or are there times when you do it when you kind of go into like a different realm sort of thing where you're not like, like where you're tripping almost? Like, do you do that or what? Or does that
uh
happen?
I've done that. I think your tolerance can build to it a little bit. I mean, I don't use it very often, but I've microdosed and not felt anything, and then I've taken like a larger dose and felt not a lot. So it just depends on like how much you've eaten and what your state of mind is. And so like I'll usually take like when I it depends on the purpose that I'm taking them, but like usually 1500 milligrams.
Mhm.
So not too much, but
Your average time doing it, you're not like, you're still seeing the world around you, but your brain is thinking differently.
yeah, it's almost like my brain becomes hyper connected. Like I'm just able to perceive so much more.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I'm actually close to doing it again. The only two times I've done it was, I think I was like 20 and 26 or something, right? So it's been, over 15 or shit, how old am I now? So I'm 41 now, so it's been a while, right?
Hmm.
So, but I'm actually entertaining, especially after learning more like from Michael Pollan and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I think that it might be a cool way for me to really dig deep into some of this shit. I've been doing inner healing work on my own, which is helpful by a lot, but I just feel like if I do that and I set proper intention and like, I think I can like uncover and make some more progress, I guess, for the soul. I don't know.
Yeah, like there's a lot of research that says people that have had even one psychedelic experience have been able to see the consciousness in other living beings. Like I forget how much more than someone that hasn't, but
Mhm.
like in plants and animals, and seeing like able to see the interconnection of things and the bigger picture, I guess you could say,
Right. Right.
which that's a major component of psychological and emotional well-being.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I know personally, I feel much more connected to nature um, when I take them. But
Yeah.
I have taken them before, like recreationally, and I've not had good experiences. So,
Was that mean you were with people, other people or something?
mhm,
Yeah, because I've
yeah,
heard like you got to be really mindful of like what people are around you.
yeah, like I would never do that again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's very they're very powerful. It's a very powerful substance that should be treated with respect.
Yeah. 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 Same
Yeah.
with ayahuasca. Have you ever done that?
No, I haven't. Have you?
No, but after watching that thing with Aubrey Marcus that I think he recently put this video up on his like pages and stuff. It's like 30
Mhm.
minutes long, but I'm intrigued. I mean, I've always kind of been intrigued about it, but like I'm even more intrigued now. But like, it's the same thing where he talks about you want to be super mindful of who is leading you along that. I think even more so than shrooms.
Yeah, like it's even like peyote too. Like I would eventually like to try these things, but like the person administering it, the people around you, the environment, like the context is all so important to consider.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's something to be very careful about.
So, do you have any questions for me, or?
I had one question for you.
Okay.
What makes you feel like your best self, or what makes you feel most inspired?
What makes me feel most inspired? I think that I think I'm still working on, there's so many layers for my inner healing to get to the point of feeling inspired. Like, I mean, you know what's crazy is like, I don't even know, man. Like, I don't even know if I've ever, that's kind of fucked up. I don't even know if I've truly ever felt inspired, or if I have felt it and I just didn't know that that's what it was. You know
Or
what I
like
mean?
your best self? Like or what helps you feel closest to your best self?
Hugging a tree.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, like, I never thought I'd say that, but I was kind of in a funk actually this morning, and I was riding my trail, and there was a tree that when I ride my bike, I normally go past, but every now and then I feel called, like, hey, turn right and go see your tree, you know. But it's also on a path. It's on a path where sometimes people are there too, and I'm still not to the point of my journey where I'm like hugging trees in front of a fuck ton of people, you know what I'm saying? Which I'm sure I'll get there at some point. I'll just be the crazy hippie. But you know, no one was down there, and I went down there, and I leaned up against it and rested and talked to it for a second, and then before I left, I went up and just gave it a big squeezy hug, and I let that rest for probably like 15, 20 seconds, you know, just like a good hug, and I walked away from that like, like it just felt so good, you know. But aside from that, like, you know, being around my niece and nephews makes me feel good. And more recently, when I go on bike rides and I let the sun hit me and I'm controlling, or I'm mindful of the direction of my thought, and I'm thinking about the things that are going right for me, and that sort of stuff is good. But there's a lot of work to do. I think, you know, comedians, which I've always kind of likened myself to a comedian, even though I've never gotten paid for it or done stand up. But I can relate to comedians in a lot of ways. And most comedians, you know, I mean, a lot of comedians are broken. You know, they're broken people, and they get their validation in laughs. And nothing against it. It's a beautiful craft. And I look up to many comedians. But the reality is we're all broken in some way. And I think that I can relate to that in a lot of ways, where it's like on the outside self, you know, being in sales and whatever, hanging out with friends, you know, I'm always the joyful guy, but on the inside, it's like, do I really know what living is? You know, I don't even know myself, kind of thing. And so I've only begun to open those doors. But I can tell you that I'm more influenced by energy now. So if I'm on the phone or around someone who is negative, it fucks with my energy more so than it did before. So when I spend time with, you know, I have a friend that's local. Her name's Angel, and she's super awesome, and on her spiritual path too. She's like my soul sister. When we hang out and like we're you know, having good talks about the universe and stuff, and being around nature and everything, like you just feel good, you know, and like
Hmm.
I think that I'm less inclined to want to go climb a corporate ladder now, you know, with my awakening, you know, and I think that happiness for me is just continuing down this road, because I know that each day that I go down this road, my happiness is going to grow, and I'll find more things that inspire me. Um, but I don't really know. Like it's fucked up that I don't really know how to answer your question. Um,
I
but I do
think it's
enjoy our conversations, though.
yeah, no, I think it's like you said, it's a lot of different things, right? Like And it's kind of a continual process of finding that happiness within ourselves and not attaching it to so much external, right?
Yeah, that's like the old self. I don't know if you've ever looked at my little avatar thing, but it's like the newer me is like the cartoon head holding the hand of the old me, and the old me's got this face like he doesn't want to go anywhere. You know? And so like that's kind of like the idea behind that, right? And
yeah.
But slowly but surely, like I'm getting there, you know, and like it's a lot. It's a lot because it's decades of me being, you know, it's almost like, to be honest with you, like it's almost like I've been an actor for the majority of my adult life. And not in the sense of I wasn't real with people and I didn't tell people the truth. I've never really been like a liar of any. I mean, sure, we've all told white lies in our life, but I'm a very real, candid person. But it's almost like I've been putting on an act of, yeah, man, I'm a good guy, and I got stuff going on. You know, and it's like, no, you don't got shit going on. You don't even know yourself. You know, and so it's like almost being or you know, it's almost like I turned 18 this year, you know, and I actually now I'm an adult, quote unquote, whatever. Now I'm figuring out the work, you know, now I'm here, you know.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting process, I'll tell you that. But and to the outside world, you know, there's plenty of people that I know in my life, you know, that you know, and some of them I don't even know if they see this stuff or not. A lot of them do, and a lot of them don't. 'Cause, you know, like on YouTube, you don't know who's seeing your stuff or whatever. But I know that there are people in my world who, if they were to look at everything in my life on paper, they would be like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing, man?" You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like how are you making it? Are you what's going on? You know?
Yeah.
Like for instance, I sold my car and bought an e-bike to just buy me a little more time because I've been healing too, you know. I mean, it's been a lot to heal from, and I just wanted to buy myself a little more time. And I was like, "Fuck it, I'll just be a hippie for a while." So I scoot around town on an e-bike, you know. And I remember telling a buddy of mine, you know, that, and he goes, "Well, how are you getting places?" You know, and I was like, "Well, I just ride my way." "Well, what about your job, man? You know, what are you doing with that?" And I was like, "Well, you know, I'm kind of like not working too much right now. I'm just kind of, you know, well." You know what I'm saying? Like he's just like can't process it, you know?
Yeah.
So to a lot of people, I may seem like I'm a nut, but I on the contrary, I'm only now finally starting to figure out what being alive is, you know? And so that if I guess a long-winded way to say what inspires me is Mother Earth, you know. Let's say that. She inspires me, and knowing that I am a part of her, you know, the same as you are, and the same as you and I are a part of each other, you know, and like it gives me comfort because I was always a mama's boy. The tears were trying to come up, but I'm not gonna let them. I was always the mama's boy, you know, and I think that that's kind of like the divine thing with the universe too, right? Like I feel like everything's divine, even though some people would argue that, but I'm a crazy person, I guess. So, you know, it's like I got that awesome mom son thing. She passed on. I coped with I grieved, et cetera, but now it's like in my awakening process I'm like, wait a minute, that was just teaching me what the love of Mother Earth is, you know. It's that, but it's divine and it's everywhere and it's always, you know. And like finding that comfort, that's what inspires me, I guess. And trying to get other people who are ready to see it. But there was some wise guru that said, you know, when you start to go down an awakening path, it's not your responsibility to go to someone else and be like, "Hey," you know. Instead, it's to shine your light as bright as you can and as bright as feels good to you, and inspire others to go down their own walk, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what inspires me.
Lead by example, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully, you know, people that watch our stuff will get a little bit of that, you know.
Yeah, and that's the aim, right? And just kind of continuing to feel, heal, and grow, which is that's why my TikTok handle is that.
Yeah, it's a great fucking TikTok handle. It's good stuff.
Thanks. And like continuing to do that and share what I learn along the way, and hope that my message can resonate with people.
Yeah.
Because I think like the ultimate form of fulfillment is being in service to others.
Yes, for sure. And you know, in closing, I'll say too, like when I first started going down this journey, I was thinking dissolve the ego, get rid of the ego. And now I'm more like, okay, no, I don't think that's it, because we wouldn't have the ego if it didn't serve some form of purpose, right? So it's more be aware of the ego. Don't let the ego ruin shit. Don't let the ego hurt other people's feelings. You know, be humble, etc. But for me, like, I want to help people, and the people that maybe not everybody can see it, but the people that I engage with, you know, they say they can feel it. I know that they can feel it because they say they can feel it. They're like, I'm being with them, I'm being present with them, I'm being real with them, I'm sharing with them. I want them to grow too, you know, like there's enough room for us all to get on this happy, you know, island kind of thing. But even so, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. And I also kind of forgot where I was going with that too. So there's that.
I do that all the time, but yeah, like the ego definitely serves a purpose, and it shouldn't be demonized like it is in
That's what it was.
Pop psychology.
Yeah, that's what it was. Right. And the general term, like the average person, ego, you say ego, they think it's one thing. It's like, that's not even what it is. You know, I mean, does that go in there somewhere? Maybe a little bit. But so what I wanted to say was, like, all that considered, you know, I like the idea of growing my influence and creating a coaching platform to help others. But I'm also going to be like, hey, look what I did. Look what I built over here. This is pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? But it's not from a place of, I don't want to go get the fanciest car and wear the fanciest clothes and pull up somewhere and look down on people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that person. You know, that's like when your ego is like, that's some problems. You need to address that or whatever. I don't know. But
yeah,
you know.
And like the ego is everything we think we are. Like it's everything. It's the self, like what we consider ourselves, and the ego kind of shows us as separate than others, which is protects us in a lot of ways. But I think it's important to balance the ego, to be aware of it, how it affects us, and kind of how it influences our interactions in our life. Right. And even other people, when they, like you said, when that your friend of yours seemed kind of flabbergasted that you sold your car and you weren't working too much now, and like you know, like that's an attachment of the ego of how we think that we should be as humans, right? Like what is good or bad, right or wrong. And in reality, like that Shakespeare quote I shared with you, there's nothing inherently good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I don't know if that's like the exact quote, but that's
that's the essence of it.
Because like that judgment, that thinking, like that is the ego, right? So it's interesting to think about.
Right on.
Well, this was a great chat. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, me too. We'll have to do it again for sure. The next one, we should totally go down like a let go of whatever. Let's just talk about some spiritual shit and go into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me see.
I want to do that for sure.
I totally agree. There's so many topics to discuss. I'm just gonna see if I can stop the recording. Should I do that now?
What's that?
Should we like sign off or anything?
Like say that we're signing off? What do you mean, for the video?
Yeah, I don't know. Goodbye.
No, I mean, other than and that'd be funny if that was like the end of it. Like, what were we talking about? No.
Peace and love.
Yeah, peace out, everybody. Yeah, no, we'll definitely do more stuff for, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Well, one thing is, you know, you could say whatever you want to say, but comment below, you know, comment below what you think about this interaction between Marina and myself.
Yeah,
We'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
what should we talk about?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, topics
That stuff.
welcome. Cool.
Do you have a YouTube channel too?
I'm planning on starting one. So
Okay. Cool.
yeah,
Right.
maybe I'll have that going next time we talk. But
yeah,
great chat.
Just you white in Reagan, just you white. You'll be sorry that your tears will be too light. Just you white in Reagan, just you white.